Blog Talk Radio.
Here at ACO Radio, American Communications Online, or any affiliated stations or websites are not responsible for what guest hosts or call-ins may say. All programming is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only.
Hello, world. This is T.J. Morris with American Communications Online and T.J. Morris ET Radio and Aquarian Radio syndicating together tonight on Friday. It is May 8th, 2020, and we are so happy to be syndicating a friend of ours that is in our metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal community that I hope you guys will like to meet. I know I'm excited about it. I've never really talked to him except right before this on the planet. So welcome aboard, as I said, all you ground troops spinning around smartly. We have learned to work together in social networking in these trying times on the planet. And I have asked my BFF forever in more lives than this one to join me tonight because she happened to have met the gentleman, I think it's serendipity, synchronicities, that Jim Grapek and I have been apparent friends in social media, at least that I can find on LinkedIn since January 2017. Now, let me tell you a little about Jim Grapek, and Janet might want to add more because she's known him longer than I have. She actually met the man. Jim's training in physics, metaphysics, communications, business, health, and the arts all come together in the Pavilion. With a BS from the Newhouse School in Syracuse and a master's from Cornell's SC, I guess Johnson College of Business Hotel School, Jim's career life and leadership highlights include notable success in the fields of hospitality, healthcare, fitness, and filmmaking. Jim ran the fine dining at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and founded a successful national press building-based production company that ran for over 20-plus profitable years. Jim wrote, produced, and directed one of the Discovery Channel's highest-rated specials, Secrets of the Warrior's Power. He holds 2 black belts in Asian martial arts. He is board-certified health practitioner in biofeedback. He enjoys cooking, playing a guitar, and motorsports. Now, he is much more than that as an entrepreneur and a director of a nonprofit, but Janet Carol Lessin of Hawaii is a friend of mine that I met in Hawaii and my spiritual path, and we were both in the spiritual center, your spiritual center, and she came to one of my Ascension Psychic Network affairs, and so she goes to these affairs. She's always loved events and being a part of people. She's a great social networker, and my friend since 94, we're writing a book together, and she's been with me in radio as my co-host and me hers for going on 8 years, June 6th. So let me get her on here and let her tell you about her idea of meeting Jim Grapek, and I think they were Sitchenites, or at least authors together. Janet Carol Lessin, can you hear me now?
Hi. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Teresa. Jim and I met, I believe it was in 2005 in Florida at one of the Zechariah Sitchin events. And Zechariah has since passed in 2010. And I really don't remember too much about it. But Jim, if that's not correct, please correct me, but that's when I think we met. But this is the first real conversation that I will be having with Jim since that. So it's a long time ago, 15 years ago. So I would like to get right to the meat of it because we've got a lot to cover, and 2 hours goes really fast. And I'm not sure if we're going to make 2 hours tonight, but let's see. Jim, hi, welcome.
Well, would you like to introduce yourself? And he's on mute, but
yeah.
Tell us about you in Hawaii real quick, and I'll pull him on, and we'll let him take the show, and all of that. But tell people about you, Janet. You've had a lot to do in Hawaii that Jim may not know of. 15 years is a long time, because I know you want. This is about him and his show. Tell people about you.
Right. Basically, I'm living over here in Maui, Hawaii, with my wonderful husband, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and we are researchers and interviewers. We have Aquarian Radio, and we do 2, 3, 4 shows a week, and now we're expanding into getting interviewed by other people even more. I have an agent now booking me, and we're also counselors, authors. We've written about 10 books. We have 5 on the Anunnaki. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on me, but then we're doing relationship counseling and spiritual growth counseling. So my husband has a PhD in anthropology and counseling psychology, and I met him almost 24 years ago. And we fell in love and moved in together and got married. So we've been working in a counseling practice for many, many years and done workshops and speaking at conferences like Contact in the Desert, and we're having a fun life together. So, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on me because I know Jim, I spoke with him briefly, and I'm not sure if he can be able to go through the whole show. So let's, without further ado, bring on Jim Grapek. Let him tell us about himself, okay?
All right, Jim Grapek, you're live and on the air.
Hi, Jim.
Well, that's a great. Who's that? That's a great introduction. Who's that guy? I want to meet him.
He's amazing.
Thanks. No, I was saying, I had some fish earlier, like I wolfed down for dinner. So hopefully my stomach's a little funny, but we'll give it a shot here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So what?
Yeah, be the best you can be.
Yeah, let's see. Yes, it was either Florida or Arizona or just somewhere around there. I agree with Zachariah
I'm not
Sitchin.
sure. Yeah, it could have been Arizona.
Yeah, I think it was Arizona.
Were you at the first certification program in New Mexico?
Maybe, yeah.
With Cody and Robin Johnson, they were the Prophets Conference people. Was that the one? And they made a documentary.
Sounds familiar. I'm not. I think my memory isn't. I don't hold on to some of that stuff. So yeah, sounds kind of.
Yeah,
familiar.
I don't either. Okay, it's not. Important.
Anyway, yeah. So interesting times, huh? Pretty crazy. I guess we should have expected it. As I was saying earlier, we had a brief conversation that. I guess I've always had a foot in both camps. You know, on one side, it's funny, I mean, seeing UFOs as a kid, a teenager in front of me pretty close, and thinking nothing of it other than, oh, cool, you know, I guess this technology exists. And that's what actually got me to go into physics, because I thought, I can help, discover that stuff. And then I remember going to, later in life, I'm at a Smithsonian. I'm here in Washington. And the Smithsonian has a cool program called the Resident Associates Program. So you could, as someone local, it's nice because you can go down and they have lectures all the time. And there happened to be one about warp drive, the future warp drive and stuff. And I thought, cool, so I went down to that. And I got to say, I was really not just disappointed, I was angry, because the speaker said there will never be warp drive. It's totally impossible because the energy you need to overcome the mass and yada, yada, yada. So he was basically just saying, can't happen, doesn't exist. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, isn't science supposed to be about here we are today, but there's things we still haven't discovered, Isn't that what it's about? We're supposed to be always learning and growing. This guy just shut everybody off. Any of these younger people in there that were really thinking about maybe careers in aerospace or something, this guy just turned them off. I know, just got to stick with it, jets and airplanes or whatever. So, and we know that's not true. Actually, I filmed a talk by Hal Puthoff, which I think you guys know. a couple of weeks ago, really, talking about To the Stars Academy, what's going on, remote viewing. I mean, it covered a whole lot of things. And he said, actually, I think it was a French physicist, but with Einstein's relativity equations, not special relativity, but general relativity, you can have warp drive. Absolutely. And it's really interesting. So they have that. I mean, these guys are working on it. I think you and I, a lot of us know, obviously, they're already doing this stuff. But so,
let me interject something about that before I just, because it's very relevant right here when we're talking. I have this guest coming on named Dan Cooper, and he's on the 31st, and he's already working on the patents for warp drive, because I don't know if you're familiar with the 20 and Back program that the whistleblowers are talking about.
Sure.
So he's been in the secret space program. And anyway, he already has stuff going, but he's also identified what the government has. So I think with what is that new branch of the service, the space program, the one that Trump announced.
Space Force.
The Space Force, yes. So, and then I've had Dan Cooper the last 3 or 4 years, and he's been talking about what, he's going to bring to the surface. So we did about 4 or 5 shows, and he said, oh, guess what? The government's going ahead, and they're putting patents in place, which are searchable, and you can access them. So he's going to talk all about that on the 31st, but I think that I know it already exists because of all the whistleblowers and experiencers and contactees that I talked to. But he says, no, they're starting to make it, public. So I think there's going to be something with. Yes, go ahead.
I have some of them upstairs. The ones that are public, I got from a friend who's a consultant, an aerospace engineer, and he was very surprised to see public patents on anti-gravity and different types of thrust and so on, and nuclear fission, fusion. But I think, as we talked about, look, a lot of people don't know about this or don't care. It doesn't matter. Look, but a lot of the technology we have and where we're going to be going is going to change rapidly, my understanding, in the next couple of years. And that's what Hal was hinting at. Not only that, and this is kind of off topic because I didn't come on a plan to talk about this, but he's gotten like the go-ahead from the government or Pentagon or whoever some of the, muckety mucks are, to start putting out information on other life forms. I thought that was really interesting. And I'm talking about not just corporeal life forms, like physical, like you and I, or us, but non-physical life forms, which goes back, of course, in our own history, everywhere from possessions in the church, right?
Right.
And that probably today a lot of people think is nonsense, but a lot of us know it's absolutely true. I work with patients. I sometimes have to pull out entities or possessions that they have that are actually carrying a disease or responsible for their symptoms. And personally, I can't wait till the world, till medicine, we wake up everybody and have a new system where imagine, and there was a psychologist, PhD author, Edith Fiore, who wrote a book called The Unquiet Dead. Yeah. And she found through hypnosis and regression that sometimes she wasn't talking to her patient. She was talking to somebody that, like a ghost, an earthbound spirit, whatever you want to call it, that maybe hooked into this person while they were in a hospital setting or, would drink too much or whatever it might be. And when she was able to help them clear this ghost out, say, shoo, go home, the person who perhaps had, and in one case they had kidney problems, they all went away, kidney disease. As soon as the ghost was gone, the kidney disease was fine. It resolved itself.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's a lot easier and cheaper than having to go through surgery, medication, and having a miserable life, right?
Right,
so, look, it's worth a shot. And of course, it's not everybody, but it definitely, in my, so I work with a type of biofeedback, and we'll get into that later. I just give you a quick story.
Well, that's interesting that you said that. No, that's great. Let me just add to that. We've been working with people that have possessions or attachments for years. Dr. Lessin studied with Bill Baldwin, who specialized in exorcisms. It's a form of exorcism. It's not the Catholic one that the priests do, but it's a form of exorcism. So I've been a part of many of these sessions where we're sending them back into the light to go back from whence you came from, and it's a fascinating process when you see people letting go of that attachment. Their whole face change, their demeanor change. It's like they're shape shifting, and they go back to who they really are. Because when we meet them as a therapist, we're getting the person that's possessed, right? And they may not always know they're possessed, right? They don't think or symbolize in that way, but Dr. Lessin will be doing, just regular, they came in for smoking or whatever it is, right? And somehow he can identify when the attachment starts to come through, and then he starts, he says, speak through, so-and-so, Carol or whatever our client is, without taking her over. Just allow this entity to speak through you. Use your voice, but you're not to take over her. And, here comes another voice. And it's like when the voice comes through, the face kind of overlays over the client's face. So this other face kind of overlays over it. It's fascinating. And I didn't know it until I met Dr. Lessin, but I'd say we've done about 40 or 50 of those over the past 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, yeah.
I was going to say, back to you. I have an invisible talking stick, so I'm giving you back the talking stick. Take it away.
I think it's important for the audience, for people in general today, to know that this isn't hocus pocus. This is science. This is physics. It's the latest understandings of our universe are energy. I mean, everything is energy. So we are energy. We happen to have a body, but that body is even energy. It's all kind of a trick of our senses. So these beings without bodies, because like when you sleep and you dream and you travel around perhaps, I mean, there's different ways, or ghosts or other real beings, other civilizations or worlds, because apparently they are out there. I think it's something that as we move forward and our understandings, this is what Dr. Putoff was talking about, getting the general population more comfortable with this, more to understand it better, which is good. Because, I mean, he's like one of the top scientists in the country associated with all of these, government projects. So you can't get any more mainstream really than him. And when I heard that, because you hear about jinn beings, all right? The jinn, it's I guess more.
The jinns,
Quran or whatever, these little jinxters or genies. I mean, that's where the word genie comes from. Jinn beings. So it's also the nature spirits, the devas. They live in the earth with us. And there's a way that we can not just, to communicate with them. These are some of our prayers. We want to call them angels or helpers or a family on the other side. There is sufficient proof that this all exists. Though, unfortunately, in the world we've been living in, which is very focused on materialism and money and profits and so on. I mean, nothing wrong with profits, but if things are not handled properly, shall we say, there's no integrity, well, that's a problem, which we see today with this whole COVID experience.
I want to talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Go ahead.
One last thing on the possessions, for example, because I have a very real-world example. I work I was part-time with a medical practice in Washington, and we had a integrative medical practice. We had a woman come in who was a nurse, and she had seen, all kinds of doctors everywhere. She came down from New York, and apparently she had all kinds of weird problems, and she was like 35, and the doctors asked me to scan her with my equipment, and because they said we can't figure out what's wrong with her. I mean, she just shouldn't be sick. She shouldn't have these symptoms. So I did that, and the first thing that popped up on this equipment I use is it basically said there's another personality on board, another brainwave. And
wow.
It came up in like 3 spots. And I asked her, I said, hey, what do you do? And she said, I work for a nonprofit in New York City. I drive around to homeless shelters, and I help take care of the homeless. Well, a lot of these homeless have left, you know, when the institutions, I think under Reagan or somebody, basically opened up the institutions. A lot of these people now, the homeless people, have mental illness. And because of these mental illnesses, they are susceptible or open to ghosts more easily. They got a lot of, that's why it seems like they have multiple personalities, or who knows what's going on sometimes. And she's picking them up because she's going to help them. And they're thinking, oh, here's a nice woman, you know, and bingo, her guard is down, and she's got all these ghosts on board, and she's exhibiting symptoms no one could make sense of. I couldn't tell her if she was my client, I would explain that to her. But at the medical practice, these guys could lose their license. So they couldn't say that. They just had to say, well, maybe, you know, check on this or that, whatever it was. Okay, my story. I'm turning over the stick.
That was
interesting, right?
Incredible. Yes, it's very well. I've worked with people on that level, and Dr. Lessin has. Well, so what you're saying is totally true. And people let themselves open for possession when they do drugs, when they drink, right?
Drink a lot.
There was a book. Yep. There was a book I read, and I can't remember the name of it. It's about 25, 30 years old, but it talked about how they jump in through your crown chakra. So you actually, when you do things like that, you open up your crown chakra, and these ghosts, these discarnates, are just waiting for the opportunity to come. Since they can't figure out how to get back into the birth cycle and be born again, they'll come in and possess people. So you have to really be careful about protection if you're opening up yourself up, especially some of these drugs that are out there. You know, I
don't think we want to scare people. I don't want to scare people. Look, there are a lot of people that have like ghosts on board. It could be your Aunt Martha. You know, I mean, like when she passed and you loved her. And she's kind of with you, and it's visiting
you, but possessing you. See, that's the difference. So you can't open yourself to possession. Talking, yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes they're benign. And it's kind of part. One of the clues though can be, you know, there's an expression like, "Wow, I'm really not feeling like myself today." It might be true. It could be true. It's something to look at. That's all. Just be aware of that. You know, it's like a virus. Look, it's not bad. Just got to like bump them out. And today it's easy. There's not only equipment like I use can do that, but there are people that have skills like that, right? So
right, and you can actually forbid them from coming and taking you over. But if you're already taken over, it's hard to separate them. And you know,
again, I guess I come at it from the mainstream, the more general everyday person that really never gave this a thought. And it's something that really we should be aware of because it can help them.
It can help them. So this brings me back to Dr. Pudolf. Since he's speaking about interdimensionals and, you know, of this kind, he probably had some experience. Did he convey to you what he actually experienced? Has he had some interactions with ETs and especially interdimensionals?
No, he's not allowed to tell us that.
Okay, he's not allowed to tell us that. Well, both TJ and I have had experience with ETs, and I grew up, ghosts were all over I grew up in a haunted house, so I had to learn how to deal with them growing up. It seemed that was a portal, and even now I ended up in Maui at the foothills of the West Maui Mountain, and this is where Kamehameha came through when he landed in the 1800s and killed everybody. So this valley and Eow Valley are full of, it's like Skinwalker Ranch, right? They call them night walkers.
Skinwalker Ranch.
It's like that.
Yeah.
I've got night walkers all around my property, and I will have people come visit me, and they'll go, "Did you see that? Or did you feel that?" Or I woke up and there was somebody at the foot of my bed. I go, "Yeah, I'm sorry, this place is haunted."
But even regular, how many people have, just like when my grandmother passed, I saw her. How many had that kind of experience? When my mom passed, one of my daughters saw her standing at the end of the bed. That's pretty common, I think. To
very
have some
common.
kind of experience.
Both my mom and dad came to me after they died, both of them. So, I think people don't talk about it because they don't want to be shamed.
Yeah, but
crazy.
now we need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Fine.
So, TJ, did you have something to add? And then we'll go back to Jim sharing his story. Are you on mute?
Yeah, y'all have to give me a second to get off mute, because now you put yourself on mute, and I'll talk for a minute. That's Janet's phone. It'll be off in a minute, folks.
Yeah, hold on. I'm shutting it off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tom, when he died, my husband, folks, we had to deal with a lot of neuroscience and core concepts due to ghosts. He was actually seeing one of the friends that got killed over in Desert Storm with him at the last of his years, and so he went to a psychiatrist at the veteran. And, of course, he and I were big veterans and helped in Ohio County with veterans associations, and that's a lot of how I got back into festivals and doing this radio show was due to him and my mother being authors. But he didn't write the stories that we wanted to hear because he didn't want people to think he was crazy, but you can go back here on Blog Talk Radio and hear, because he was an astute CIA agent for President Reagan, and he was an assassin, and so he had a lot of beings around him. But when he was dying, at the end, the CIA came to see him as an agent, and that was verified by several people, including the hospital. But he talked about he had lost his right leg, and he was having not only seeing people, but the ghost limbs, at his core, phantom limb syndrome. So there's a lot to do with neuroscience and studies of the brain and the complex brain neurons. And I noticed that the things that we did with the government in intelligence work and on investigations, a lot of that stuff came back to haunt him in and out of country. A lot of things that Jim doesn't know about my husband and I, but Janet does a little bit anyway, because we don't share because of intelligence, and people just don't have a reason to know or need to know. But that's another reason I'm covered under paranormal tonight with both Jim and Janet. And integrative medicine, because now I suffer from a neurological problem since I broke my neck and have titanium in my neck. So I'm working with a lot of people, and I would like to discuss further with Jim the intelligence behind the next generation in science and the future of metaphysics, quantum physics, and our new paradigm, which has to do after the COVID. And Janet asked me if we could mention something about that. So somewhere in here, we don't have a format tonight because I'm just meeting Jim for the first time, so this is an informal meeting. We have no agenda, but this is just open conversation between three metaphysicians. So I'm going to turn it back over to Janet and Jim and go back on mute. But yeah, Janet, I think that's interesting. Y'all were talking about ghosts and neuroscience and the future and, paranormal. And we do deal with a lot of television shows, and there's going to be more in the future, folks, including with my Psychic Channel network. So I'm going to turn it back over to Janet and Jim. But, Janet, you knew Tom, and you understand what I'm talking about. They see ghosts more so. I'm wondering. I'd like to just mention that I think that we all have the ability, we all have many abilities that inside the matrix, I call it, in this 3D dimensional reality, or the illusion, if you listen to some people. And I do. I believe in many dimensions, many universes, and I just really believe that helping the people I've helped, including my daughter passed to the other side, that there is a care given by baby boomers in our age now to come back and be an extended part of society at 60 and above, folks. So this next 20 years, you're going to see some amazing change. And I know Jim producing can help Janet and I in communication. So, Jim, I think tonight is yours. So any topics you want to talk about, but I thought I should mention about that phantom limbs goes with that ghost scientifically. So I'm going to mute now.
Thank you. So back to you, Jim, but I just want to say one more time that this is so important that Dr. Hal Puthoff is going into this. He's bringing it into the mainstream, ETs and these interdimensionals and ghosts and other types of beings. So back to you, Jim.
I was surprised, actually. I mean, I know there's a lot of controversy about TTSA, to the Stars Academy. But at the same time, look, this he's certainly real, and he's been involved with these projects and programs and propulsion for many years. And so all of that, he was explaining, going through some of that, which was okay. I mean, there are plenty of UFO researchers. We both, I've listened or filmed these people and so on. But when he talked about changing the mindset of people by producing books and programs to really, I guess, either evidence-based or strong enough that shows that there are other types of beings in the universe. I think, to me, it's definitely a forerunner to what we should be expecting in the next few years. I suppose I can't think of any downside to that.
No.
Unless there's some false flag they're planning, but I don't think that's going to happen. And we all know what's going on anyway. Well, no, enough of us. What else?
But do we?
Yeah. What?
Well, I'm looking at your cognitive dissonance, and I'm kind of scanning it. You sent me an article for distribution, and I will put it up on my site, aquariumradio.com, and then TJ will put it on her sites. But, there's all this conspiracy stuff and what's going on behind the scenes, and then we've had our experiences, and sometimes we're in the loop and sometimes we're not at all. But what do you know about this COVID? What do you really know? I mean, there's all these stories and all these information, disinformation, but how do we prove any of this?
I think that I've been doing programs in health and science for a long time, and I work with a number of people. I used to believe that vaccines, like anybody else, were good for you. They help get rid of polio and smallpox and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we've all been vaccinated.
Yeah, until I didn't. Until years. Well, until I was filming, I was hired to cover a conference where you had doctors, pediatricians, scientists, PhDs, lawyers, all talking about the questionable safety of vaccines. Whereas vaccines, the concept might work, but with all of the stuff they're putting in, and now that the vaccine industry has no liability, it's like you can get a car. Remember, everybody's suing, or Toyota with the airbags that didn't work, or the brakes failed, and multi-million-dollar suits, and it keeps them honest. That if there's something like that, they fix it, because otherwise they have to recall thousands of cars and so on. Mm-hmm. So, but there's nothing like that with vaccines. There is a separate court, the vaccine industry, like basically 4 pharmaceutical manufacturers, got the Congress to pass a law that says you guys get a free ride. And if people die, that's just the way it goes. They actually set up a court with our that pays people out. It's not easy to get a payout there, but they paid out over $4 billion to families and people that have been harmed or killed because of vaccines. So clearly, and the U.S. Supreme Court said they are unavoidably unsafe. So how there can be all of this media push that says they are safe and they're forcing it on our children is I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy. It's all a scam, essentially. It's media spin. And that's what I'm going to go back to COVID. That was my build-up, because it's the same people that are involved at the same pharmaceutical companies. It's the same money. You can look at what's in the news. Look, Trump said it. NIH and Fauci were funding the Wuhan lab, you know, the virology lab. And then you look at this new $1,000 a pill cure. They're ignoring all of the natural cures. Look, I've seen Alzheimer's cured, Ebola cured, easily, actually. And they don't want this information to get out because it's going to knock out a, you know, $1 trillion industry. And I suppose...
So that's, as long as you monetize medicine and health and wellness, as long as it's monetized, there's no incentive to actually find cures. It's all about monetizing. It's all about profit. So that's why we have to have universal health care to stop monetizing. You know, it's basically our lives. You're monetizing our lives. And then they go to a point when you run out of insurance. It's like, okay, time to shut them off and power them out and let them die. So let me ask you about vaccines, because there's a new thing on antibodies. They use the antibodies of the people that have already gone through COVID, and they're genetically engineering them or cloning them so they can inject you with the antibodies. And that's what's behind vaccines, if I'm understanding this correctly. You end up you need to develop antibodies to the virus. And so that's what some kind of system of developing antibodies for the virus, correct? Yeah, okay. So is this new technology that they're going down because they think they can have it by August, and the normal vaccine takes about 18 months. So
first
what
of all,
do you think of this technology they're talking about?
I think they're trying to scam us, basically. Sorry if anybody's looking for this.
No, that's okay. Because you're following the money. What do they get out of the scam? So they're getting rich? They're
getting rich. I mean, first of all, the patents, Gates Foundation, WHO, they share these patents. So that's billions of dollars with the pharmaceutical companies. The second thing is there's a program called ID 2020. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
No, I'm actually not.
Okay, well, they want to make sure that part of this whole vaccine, well, before you get to that, vaccines might be fine, except when you look at the ingredients on a vaccine, you read the insert. It lists about 60 diseases that could be side effects, and they have to list them because they are possible side effects, and they have to show it, even for the vaccine court, it was on the insert. Look, my daughter, and this just is coincidence because after we divorced, we didn't want our kids. Well, when we're married, we got our kids an exemption, a religious exemption from vaccines. And for some reason, my ex wanted to, God bless her, she wanted to, take care of our daughter, and thought that a meningitis shot for school or something when she was like, I think 10, would be helpful. And I said, I don't know why you think that. I don't think it's a good idea, but she went ahead and got it anyway. Well, on the vaccine insert, it does say a possible side effect is diabetes. And 2 weeks later, our daughter collapsed, hospitalized, her pancreas stopped working, and one of the doctors, and actually it was in Denmark, maybe they're a little more open to being realistic about what's causing things, he said, I think it was the vaccine you got. So this is, it's very possible, and we need to be informed about the possible problems, that can happen, adverse effects. The other thing is, if
pharmaceuticals, so I don't believe in vaccines, but when we were children, in order to go to school, we were vaccinated. Yeah.
They put in mercury, and most of the mercury's out because they know it's a neurotoxin, or we know it's a neurotoxin. But now aluminum adjuvants, they're supposed to help make it work better. Well, aluminum's a neurotoxin also. And when people compare it to, we get aluminum in our food all the time, or if you're cooking with aluminum pan or something, well, that's not good, but we're not, at least that's not injecting it into your directly intramuscularly that's a different story. Then it can cross the blood-brain barrier. And we also have antifreeze like glycol and formaldehyde in these vaccines. I mean, you wouldn't drink this stuff. Why do you want to shoot it into your body or your kids? But look,
so let's cut to the chase then. Well, vaccines are generally not to be trusted, and I haven't had it. I got the last one 25 years ago. Naively, I thought I'll get a flu vaccine. But what do we do with this pandemic? They say these things have been around since the Anunnaki had their wars, and they used to use biochemical warfare against the two, the factions, right? So that's the story behind Pandora's box. And then a lot of this stuff is in the soil. We go in and we start digging up the ancient jungles, and we eat strange animals, and it just comes back. So they apparently exist. I don't know if they're out making new ones or if they're activating old ones or they're probably they're engineering them as weapons because these viruses have always been weaponized.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Of course. That's what they funded to get them weaponized.
And this goes back to the Anunnaki. So we're talking about thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago. So probably if you go to the galactic wars or the intergalactic wars, these things have been around and they're in space. Yeah.
Yeah. What's kind of fun, Janet? If you just for one quick bit of history, I had seen documents from the 1500s, I think, whenever the bubonic plague, ravaged Europe. There were descriptions people had, like memoirs and journals, that they said before that happened, looked like people wearing suits. They didn't know what gas masks were, but they basically described people in hazmat suits with sprayers going through the town the night before. Now that's pretty odd,
isn't it?
And that's
probably behind the Grim Reaper, the image of the Grim Reaper.
Exactly.
The hazmat suits to go through town.
Yeah. But so what was your other question? So vaccines, I mean, all of this is.
I'm looking for if we can't use vaccines because we can't trust the source. I don't know if there's such a thing as a vaccine that isn't full of all this crap, but if the intention was to really actually cure something, but our government and our world is so corrupt. There's no longer that, and then we have whatever's going on. The predictions are that we're going to be by June we're going to have 3,000 people a day. It's either affected or dead or something, and that's going to be acceptable.
Janet, look, all these numbers have been way down.
These are stories.
Yeah, the stories.
It could be way up. There's no way to prove it one way or the other. I'm saying if you want to really prove it, there's no way to prove it. We just have whatever the powers that be or everything that's out there is out there because the powers that be want it. If they didn't want something like this conversation today, they would interrupt us, right? So
or this will be pulled off of YouTube or something. No, I get it.
Right. So everything's out there. It serves their purposes to some level, even this discussion about it. So
for people looking for the truth. Yeah, people looking for truth. There are basically four companies. Let me just finish on the vaccines for you. Four companies that manufacture vaccines in the world. They are and there's a great documentary. You might have to go to band.video to find it. It still might be on YouTube. Robert Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, who is head of the Children's Health Foundation, I think. Did a 2-hour interview talking about some of the points I'm sharing with you. And look, this guy's as credible, mainstream, politically connected as you can get. So I'm not saying anything new. Listen to him and look at this data. It's a great interview because he said they're killing all our children. I mean, this is absurd. It's insane with the CDC and this. What's happening here. So there are basically four companies that make these vaccines. All four of them these are the largest, actually the pharmaceutical industry is the largest defrauder of the federal government. That means every year they're paying billions in criminal fines. So from killing people, from misleading people, especially these vaccine manufacturers. I don't remember what the figure, he put it in the billions just last year for fraud. So, yeah, would you trust? I mean, you wouldn't want to do business with these people. I wouldn't. Do I want to take something, whether it's a pill or an injection that I get from a company I don't trust? And Gallup polls show that the pharmaceutical industry is the least trusted industry in America. So, I mean, that kind of sums it up for me, you know, and the rest is dressing. But look, there's cures. There's cures for COVID now. It's not dangerous for most people. It's like the flu. That's like they said. Look, if you're healthy, you get around. A lot of people, it spreads through the air. We have germs. You know, Pasteur's germ theory, which the whole medical industry is based on, because you can have a vaccine or a pill for every germ out there, and that's a great way to make money. But the fact is, Pasteur's rival at the time, or his colleague, let's say, competitive colleague, Antoine Beauchamp, said, no, it's not the germs. We have germs inside of us all the time. It's when our body, when the pH, when we don't eat well or we don't get enough sleep or something, our body's pH changes. That's like your acidity, alkalinity, and then you become, the germs already inside of you start to grow. And if there are germs outside of you, COVID, flu, influenza, tetanus, whatever it is, they will, they can add on and affect that. But for the most part, it's taking care of your body and your immune system, which is incredibly smart and miraculous. And if you just take care of yourself, you don't have to worry about these things. Your chances of getting killed.
Let me ask you something about that. Because when I was a child, and I don't know how old you are, but I'm 66. And when I was born in the 50s, the food was pretty pure. It wasn't like our food has changed, and you can tell because our Americans are fat, and they're more fat people. And it's like you can eat the same foods you've eaten all your life, but things are gonna happen. So what's going into our foods, and it's being changed and modified by whatever's going on in the air, water, soil. So food isn't the same. So it's really hard to eat healthy to support this process, this natural process within our bodies that should be able to take care of everything.
I have answers for that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go into that. How do you eat healthy unless you're growing it in your own land? But I don't even know if what I grow here in Maui, which is probably pretty pure, it's going to be unpolluted because they had GMOs here and they were spreading it all over into the air. So how do you actually get healthy food?
I mean, you're right, but I think, look, if my gut tells me, and there are probably some studies I've read, if you, as much as you can, eat organic food. There's a group online called the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. They have a great list of the safest fruits and vegetables and the most dangerous ones. If you can't find organic foods, what you can feel better about, what you should avoid, or what you might want to avoid. I'm also working for the pavilion with a group because I want pavilions that are, I see them around the country, around the world, kind of these next generation community centers. Part of that's going to be, we will have greenhouses. I have been working with some of I think somebody here, an entrepreneur in the Virginia area that has developed an incredible, it even blows away hydroponics growing system where you have tomatoes that are organic, and instead of a plant producing like normally 15 pounds of tomatoes, they're getting 100 pounds of tomatoes out of a plant.
I heard tomatoes aren't good to eat. They keep changing what's good and what isn't. Tomatoes aren't good to eat, arthritis.
Yeah, it all depends. It's lycopenes. It depends on your health. There's also ways, that's another thing we will bring forward, there's ways to actually adjust the energy in tomatoes or to eat things and change it so you don't get sick through biogeometry. There are it's like muscle testing. But instead of just knowing if this is going to be good for you or not, we can change the character of the product, of the quality of the food. And this is something I'm working with groups around the country to bring forward as well.
Now, are these things on your website? Are these articles that we could read? And because people need to wrap their heads around it.
Yeah. I'm actually just putting out a health blog. I've got 6 articles coming out in the next few weeks. If people want, they could just email me. It's on that one sheet or on your site at jimgrapek@gmail, for example, or the Pavilion website, and I will put them on the mailing list and can point them towards resources. I'd be happy to.
I think what we need to do is, because talking about it is too abstract, but actually give them, some things that they can do.
As a journalist and a producer, I've been over the years, and what's happened, I've been so blown away by the advances I've seen from doctors and researchers, scientists, physicists, and then I kind of come back to my studio and I wonder, like the next week or the next year, how come these things haven't made it to the market? Why doesn't my doctor know about this? And finally, that was actually a big part of the impetus for the Pavilion, because the government, or the globalists or the government or whoever you want to put out there, is not letting these things come forward, really. So I thought, look, they're out there. Why don't we just do it from a grassroots level so we all have access to these new sciences, new technologies, new understandings, and live better? I mean, to me, the point of being here, it's a beautiful planet. There's the trees, the animals, our plants, our pets are great. I mean, why should we be walking around in fear or feeling like, oh my God, I can't, pay my rent next month or whatever it is? And we have all the tools to take care of that. So we really can start focusing on being happy and being healthy and supporting each other.
Well, somebody's got control of the narrative. And so let's look at that. That's kind of conspiracy stuff. But somebody's got control of the narrative. Right now, if I just go walking around the streets and stuff, I think they're opening it up Monday. But between now and Monday, it's illegal for me to go out and just, hang out and do nothing. I have to have a purpose why I'm in town. It's a $5,000 fine, up for a year in jail. So I go, fine. See, I don't see any of that as a negative. I just go, whatever, whatever, because I'm totally fine being in my house. I mean, I'm always happy wherever I am, because wherever I am, there I am, right? So I love myself, and I just make the best out of anything, right? So whatever. So they're going to open it up. And there's all these stories about if this happens, that happens, that happens, that happens. Now, the human psyche believes it. This is what happens when you go to the doctor. You might go for something else. They say, well, you got cancer. And then they say, well, you got 6 months to live. There's something about the subconscious, that the psyche.
And 6 months they die.
They grab onto it and they die. Right. So we've got this narrative out there. They've got the narrative. They want us. They want to vaccine us all. They want to control our transportation, everything. And we've known about this in the UFO field. For, 20, 30 years. We've known about this. So here we are. We're in the new world order. It's coming about. And
it's
I forget what I was
going
to say about it. Let me. I mean, that's what TJ was saying. What's going to happen in this post-COVID world? Because every time they want to lock us down now, they have. I don't know. And just to do a disclaimer, I really respect and love everybody. If you've lost somebody, I am so sorry for your pain. I feel your pain. I'm a psychic. I actually feel people's pain. I was in a coma before 911 for 3 days before 911. I woke up, and literally came downstairs after a 3-day kind of coma, and the Twin Towers, it was falling. And I went, oh, shit. And I knew that was going to happen before it happened. And so I'm very psychic. So I feel there's a lot of real death going on right now. It's not just story.
Can we ask Jim where he was?
Stuff happened.
Can we ask Jim where he was?
For 911, it's not important. I want to stay on this narrative because it's really important. We'll go back to that, but I don't want to. I'm getting feed. You've got your mic up too high, TJ. Yeah, you got feedback. Okay, turn your mic down. Okay, so we're aware of the narrative. We're aware of the agenda.
Sure.
I did the last interview with George Green on nohoax.com. What do you think about that? Go ahead.
Okay. Here's what I think, and here's what I know, actually. But before I get to what I know about the narrative and why it's not going to happen for me, is because all has to do with the nature of consciousness. But before I touch on that, I just want to say to anybody out there are cures that have been suppressed for COVID, for all of these diseases. In fact, it's easy. Things like ozone. And you could check if don't go to your hospital, don't go to your normal doctor, but functional medicine people, acupuncture, other types of doctors or health practitioners, some osteopaths are familiar with this, chiropractors, where you can use ozone, you can use IV vitamin C therapy. They've proven it works in hospitals in Sweden, and they're denying it because, again, it's not patentable. It doesn't make money. They want to put a vaccine out, okay? And if you're not going to – anyway, so you've got those two, that chloroquine, which the president originally talked about. I talked to a number of doctors who've had great results with that. Now, it's not for everybody. If you're in your later stages of illness, no, it doesn't work. But if it's fairly early, it works just fine. So there's plenty out there so there's no reason to be scared of anything, or any disease for that matter. I mean, Ebola was a big thing. I was really surprised when an associate of mine, who I had dinner with Dr. Harry van der Zee. He's actually from the Netherlands. He has taken homeopathy. He has a nonprofit called AMA. AMMA, I think. I forgot what it stands for. But basically, they're in Africa curing people of AIDS and malaria and using homeopathy, which costs pennies a dose, using homeopathy to inoculate kids so they don't get malaria. There's no vaccine for malaria right now. I think they're still testing it or something. And this is basically no side effects. It educates your immune system. It's brilliant. It's inexpensive. And from Ebola, AIDS, malaria, I mean, it's working. They're using it in Africa for thousands of people. So all of this is out there. You just need to do a little digging or contact, somebody that's in the alternative, which isn't really alternative, maybe natural or traditional medicine community. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what was the next?
So what do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The narrative.
So let me just say something quickly, because I've been in this this belief structure for many, many years. But a couple of years ago, my cat bit me, severed my the tendons in the finger. I tried to self-treat it. I woke up the next morning. I had the infection going up my arm. My husband said, "We got to get you to emergency." So next thing I know, I don't believe any of this stuff, but all of a sudden I'm in the hospital with an intravenous for 10 days with antibiotics. Wow. And I went, oh, shit, I'm in trouble. But I had my belief, and I thought I could take care of it, but it's like, I'm dying if I don't do this. So, I mean, what do? We can do this. There's got to be some kind of change within our being so we're not in these emergency situations in the medical system. And, they probably saved my life because I hadn't done that. But yeah. I'll tell you what, I was sick as a dog after that. After 10 days of antibiotics, I was sick as a dog for 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Janet, the purpose, Western medicine, I don't know how familiar you or your audience is in its origins, but basically it was really developed or given an organizational structure by John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller was the president or owner of Standard Oil of Exxon, Standard Oil of New Jersey. which was Exxon. So he was in the petroleum business. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but most drugs are made from petroleum. So that was a really smart thing he did, because he's not just selling oil for, cars and heating. Now he's got petroleum going into the whole medical system. And he hired somebody named Abraham Flexner to come up with a report, basically showed it to Congress and said, look, all of this other stuff, this Chinese medicine and homeopathy and all this is all nonsense. We need this is the era of science, and we can prove this with science. These drugs work, drugs and surgery, whatever it might be. And over the next 20, 30 years, they basically pushed everyone else out of the healthcare business. So we got a one-size-fits-all model. Unfortunately, it's not. It was also originally developed as what they call battlefield medicine. So it's for acute care and emergencies. And our medical system is the best in the world for that. And I'm sure here in the United States, it's probably better than anywhere. If you're in a car crash, something happens, you get bitten by your cat like that, we have the facilities to keep you alive and get you back on your feet. But it's not designed, it was never designed for health. It's just designed to take care of you when you're in bad shape. So all of the things they suggest, well, actually, they don't suggest anything. Like, as a practitioner myself, similar to acupuncture and Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathy, it's all these, the phrase is called energetic medicine. So it's the energy field, as Einstein said, and Bruce Lipton, that is controlling the matter. The chemical reactions in our body are controlled by our energy field, by energy flow through the meridians, through the chakras, through the fascia of the body. Tesla, and I think it was Tesla and a couple of others, have shown that our different organs serve different electrical functions. I mean, it's fascinating, and I wish there was more on this. Like, we have in our bodies diodes, semiconductors, liquid crystals. I mean, it's like we're a machine, but it's an organic machine. And that is not how medicine treats us. Though you can go get an ECG or an EKG. They know this energy is there because they measure it to check your heart or your brain or look at that. But these other modalities, natural medicine, really checks your energy flow. And what happens is, if you have stress somewhere, stress could be from emotions, it could be from your food, it can be from your boss. A lot of things, environmental stress. Stress will affect the energy flow. So that's why these older traditional modalities are there to correct the energy flow so you don't get sick. You don't have symptoms expressing themselves. And
let me ask you to support you on that, because we started with the Anunnaki. That's how we met, right? The Anunnaki basically lived 500,000 to millions of years. We don't even know how long, but the story goes that they came here 450,000 years ago, and Enki was one of the original settlers, along with Enlil and Nimma, and they're still alive. Yep. They we have their same DNA. And I talked to Dr. Aubrey de Grey. He says that right now what he knew, now he's traditional medicine, or he's traditional research. He's from Cambridge. He said, we can live to be 1,000. By the time he said about half, they've allowed the technology out that they've already discovered, and this was about 10 years ago. He said half of everybody alive would be able to live to be 1,000, and by 1,000 years from now, we would basically have physical immortality. So, and the Anunnaki did not get diseases, did not die. So this was genetically altered within Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens sapiens, so that we would be susceptible and have shortened life expectancies. But it's just like a computer, on, off, on, off. So we have this capability. So what you're saying is absolutely true. So I want to invite you, since you're a filmmaker, to make a series of educational shows. But I wonder if you were to make this and outline it just like this conversation, the history, Tesla, do a series of 30 minutes or to an hour. Don't make it too long. People don't have that attention span. Would the powers that be in the government allow that to go out there?
Yeah, they would. Well, yeah. And it's yes. Well, that's what the whole pavilion is about. And I've got a gal I'm working with in Washington State who has the One Hub, she calls it, Science Museum, basically, and it's part of the pavilion where you walk in and you everything we're talking about is there, plus the programs, plus Greg Braden's content about some of these things, and Bruce Lipton, all of these great content providers researchers, Rupert Sheldrake, we're going to bring together in one place and then replicate these around the country. I mean, it's hard to close that down. It's like you walk inside. It's not going to happen though, because here's what's going to happen. Here's how I understand this reality works. And it's a good question you brought up. Look at the narrative. Look what's happening with. They want to vaccinate everybody and restrict your travel, and you need an ID, kind of like going back to the old Soviet Union, that sort of thing.
It's Hitlerian. This is what happened in World War II.
Yeah.
Travel anywhere in Europe.
But we know this is also a what's the word, a bifurcation point, where there's a splitting of realities. I mean, you can go back to the law of one, the Ra book and so on, and they say, this is it. I mean, this is where this crunch is going to be put on you guys, and you have to pick a side. And I don't mean, I mean, what is my belief system? Is this how I want to live? Am I waiting for a vaccine? Is it okay that I become, do I want to have AI in my brain or part of the wheel or whatever? Or do I want to live as a free being, happy, healthy, communicating with nature and sharing and all those positive values? Because there's a big difference between the two. I mean, we know there's a lot of corruption. And I think you and I and a lot of people we know would rather live in that new world where, we can hug each other. I don't need a face mask. I can I can give somebody a smile. They'll see a smile on my face. You can't do that with these face masks on. They're dehumanizing, which is the point. They don't even work, and that's on that document I sent you. There's a couple of quotes on there, and Dr. Judy Mikovits and others believe it actually can make you sick wearing a face mask all the time. So I recommend against it. Anyway, the whole idea is
you recommend against
your consciousness. Your consciousness. If you picture a happy ending, Janet, right?
I think TJ, do you have a question or something?
I can add to that, Jim, because I would.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't see how you're getting
your mic
feedback.
Must be too high. I think your mic is too high or something.
I'm on the telephone. It's the same one I've always used.
Okay.
Is that better?
Well, go ahead, add to it.
Is that better?
Okay, let Jim finish. And then you add to it. What was your final thought there?
No, just to finish on the narrative. The whole thing is to set in your mind the future you want to see. Write it down on paper. I want to see kids playing outside. I want freedom. And we don't want to say, I don't want this. Just what you want. Don't use the word no. Don't use the word don't, which I just did, but you understand. Stay completely positive. I see a free world. I see these people going to jail. I see these natural remedies coming forward. I see communication and other intergalactic groups joining us if that's what you want. Whatever you want, write it down, and every day take a few minutes to look at it, get excited about it, feel it, and that is what's going to happen. Now,
I'm sorry, I got booted.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that? Because I think that was like the end of the climax of the story, and I got booted. Can you repeat that for me?